Do you guys know who Mahmoud Abbas is, also known as Abu Mazen? I hope you do. How to like a Soviet. Okay, so let me start with this beautiful example I heard last night at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Okay, don't ask me why I was awake, but okay. So Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the Palestinian Authority, the little bitch that he is, did his dissertation in Moscow. And he had a very interesting thesis, right? He had proved that Zionists had cooperated with the Nazis, right? So whatever the Nazis did, that was in cooperation with the Zionists. And this lady that studies those methods that this data is being sold had shared that, the Soviets had realized in 67 and before that Israel poses a threat to their Bolshevik selling operation because it was an opposing force and Israel was involved in places like Africa. Israel in the beginning was very involved. They brought irrigation systems to Africa. They started doing a lot of business in Africa. Russia saw it and was like, you know what, we don't like Israel being in Africa. This is a threat to our Bolshevik ideology. We're going to fight back. So they went ahead and told the Africans that Zionism is racism. How? Well, they twisted it. But I don't want to go into that specific example of how Zionism turned into racism in Africa and how Zionism turned into Nazism in Europe. And how Zionism, like every area, right? They understood that the equation between Zionism and Nazism would work in Europe, but Nazism didn't have the same impact on the African psychology. So in Africa, Zionism was a racism, and every area had received the kind of materials that would work with the kind of perception of understanding and reality that this place had. So here's how Mahmoud Abbas had proved that the Zionists had cooperated with the Nazis. So the interesting part is that it was actually hard work to get his whole dissertation. So at first she got like the first 11 pages and then this idea was presented and it sounds like far-fetched. But then when she managed to get the whole dissertation, she was like, okay, let's check for the resources. Now listen, how did they figure out that the Zionists had cooperated with the Nazis? It was a joint effort. Well, I don't know. Have you ever heard of the Judenrat and the Kapo? Basically, there were Jews that were handpicked by the Nazis and by the way, they, for the most part, they were executed and dealt with every time. There were different Jews who thought different thoughts when they received this kind of job. But basically, it was the people that were responsible in coordinating the Jewish community when it comes to, okay, who are we going to send to the gas chambers, who is staying in the ghetto, who is going to the ghetto, how do we take their stuff in the most comfortable way? Like the Nazis wanted it to be organized, and what better way than using some community member that was maybe important and pointing a gun at his head and forcing him or them, not everybody cooperated with that, okay? And here's what's interesting. And this is fact number one. Okay, there were couples. There was Judenrat. That's fact number one. Now we have fact number two. During the 30s, Patrick, thank you so much for your support. Fact number two. During the 30s, the 20s, the 10s, there was a booming industry. There were two types mostly of youth movements in the Jewish community in Europe, worldwide, to be honest, but we're focusing on Europe now. There was the Bund, so there was a communist movement, and there was the Zionist movement. And a lot of kids would go to one of them, and some of them were Zionist and communist, aka kibbutzim. Okay, so So, there were conventions and people would go to hear about the idea of moving to Israel and then this new movement, like this option to be part of the Zionist movement, And what Mr. Abu Mazen did, he said, okay, we have the couple on one hand, and we have these Zionism movements that basically every Jew went to. What does it mean? He went ahead and checked the history of the couple. And he was like, oh, you see, most of the couple, or I don't even know if most, but he chose those who had participated as children in a Zionist youth movement. And from that, he concluded the uneventable conclusion that the Zionists had cooperated with the Nazis, because the couple cooperated with the Nazis the way they did, right? F the details. Who cares about the details? Who cares how the Nazis made them cooperate with them? That's not important. They, as kids, some of them went to the Zionist movement, or youth Zionist movement. So you take that, you have couples, and you have a Zionist movement that they just participated in. And you do 1 + 1. Obviously, the Zionists cooperated with the Nazis. Amazing. 10 out of 10. That's the logic. That is the logic. And this is the exact kind of logic they use for everything. Now, Baruch Hashem, pure Marxism as is hard to sell because it's like Nazism, right? So pure communism or pure Marxism, if you just quote it, okay, let's be honest. Right now, it's really easy to sell because people are so illiterate that they don't even know what the original manifesto sounded like. But there was a period that people read books because they were bored, and the TV had one channel, and because of that. So during those beautiful times, you had to understand. So you're like, oh, you heard about Marxism and it's bad. So some even did the due diligence of okay, let's see what the Marxist manifesto sound like. So if you actually quote the Marxist manifesto, didn't work as well. So they adjusted it, they became a little bit more sophisticated. And to understand how it became a little bit more sophisticated,